Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, things adjacent, neck tightness. I haven't stretched in days. I usually am pretty good about doing some daily yoga stretching, but it's been raining a lot and just everything's crazy. Apologize for my absence yesterday. I was on a mad mission to make some music, and I made it. I did. Yeah, I did I did like a live video the other night on Instagram of the song that I played y'all a couple of weeks ago. And a friend of mine is a DJ at a local radio station, KCRW, which is actually internationally known. They're kcrw.com. But anyways, he saw the song and he was like, dude, send me the song so I can play it on my show tonight. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't have it recorded yet. So I basically like woke up yesterday morning and just proceeded to record the song, and I sent it to him, and he played it last night, which is cool. Always awesome when a plan comes together like that. But that's what I was doing. Well, then I had to go to work after that. So recorded some music, went out, did the day grind or the night grind. That sounds bad, right? The night grind. Sorry. And therefore I did not have time. Didn't have time for making a video, but check this out. We have stickers, Black Bear News stickers, courtesy of Amanda, who y'all might know as Earth Anarchist. Made me up a whole little pack of stickers. So if you guys want these stickers, it would just cost me a stamp to send this to you. If you want a couple stickers, let me know how many you would like. Drop me an address. If you don't want to drop an address in the comments, which I totally understand, send your address to me, blackbearnews@gmail.com, and I will send you a sticker. My plan is to make some Black Bear News t-shirts, which I am working on very, very slowly. And if you order a t-shirt, I will send you a t-shirt and a sticker. But if you just want a sticker, just it's cool. I'll send you some stickers, or a sticker, or however many you want. If you really want one, let me know. Okay, so let's get into some climate change news. First off, I want to read, there's a new article from way past what the fuck, Michael Campy, and this is from Monday, January 14th. And this is titled, "What is it going to take?" Starts out with some quotes. Rocco, what did you do? This is an attempt to get me to say the F-bomb as many times as possible. What did you do? Fucking, what the fucking fuck? Or, I didn't read that right. What the fucking fuck? Who the fuck? Fuck this fucking fuck. What did you do? Fucking fucks. Fuck. Connor certainly illustrates the diversity of the word. That's from Boondock Saints, which is an awesome movie, by the way. Fuck is one of my favorite words. It covers all the bases, adding just the right amount of emphasis. Right now, the phrase that comes to mind is, we are so fucked. We are fucked because of complacency. We are fucked because we have turned into a gaggle of whipped dogs. We are fucked because we have relinquished all responsibility for our lives and the lives of our loved ones. And we are fucked because we are using excuses to relieve ourselves of the responsibility to take action. Mike Malloy asked on his radio show, what is it going to take? How far do we have to be pushed before we push back? I would ask as well, how much are you going to take? How many hits before you hit back? When is it time to say enough is enough, and what the fuck are you waiting for? We know what is going on. We know that our chances of survival are slim to none. Is that any reason to lie down? Chris Hedges said, I don't fight because I think I'm going to win. I fight because it is the right thing to do. A writer named Don Bajema that lives in New York posted the following on his Facebook page. Friends, I'm sorry, but we are in a fight, an ugly headlock on the sidewalk fight. I hate violence. I hate the ugly intimacy of combatants the gasping, the struggle, the inflicting of pain. I hate it. But I hate concentration camps, war, racism, starvation, institutionalized sadism on the outnumbered, the weak and the defenseless, more. The circle breaks with me, and I hope it breaks with you, but I will not permit a lie or a liar in my presence. I hate to fight, but I hate to stand by and watch exploitation, cruelty, deception, prevarication, and outright lies even more. I can't stomach the thought of apologizing to my kids tomorrow for not standing up in the real world today. The internet and social media provides an opportunity to fool us into believing that we are doing something, but the simple truth is that we are not. The yellow vests in France are doing something. They are taking the fight to the doorstep of those that have wronged them. They may not win. They may be snuffed out, marginalized, and eventually destroyed, but they still fight. Fights are ugly, unpleasant, bloody, and painful, but fight we must. If you think that you are a peaceful person and that you will not be called upon to fight, then you are wrong. How a person responds to a threat to those they love is a measure of character. It is a measure of who you are as a sentient being. Character, morality, and courage are not tested in peace. They are tested in the trenches and in the streets and on the battlefield. They are tested when you are called upon to defend what is right, whether or not you can win. Anyone who has ever stood up for someone who could not stand up for themselves understands this. We are being called to a greater purpose. We are being called to defend for as long as possible the people and places we love. Will you answer the call or hide away in a dark hole screaming at your television set and waiting for the end? In times like these, when long-standing patterns are disrupted, it is possible for a small group or even one person to change the course of history. I do not remember where I heard this, but it is where we are at. So what do you say? Want to get up to some mischief? Drop a line in the comments if you're in. Hope you all enjoyed that, as I did, from Michael Campy. I usually try to limit my cursing to very surgical strikes, just because, whatever. I don't want to get any finger shaking from YouTube, but I'm just reading what was written. So there you go. Well written, as usual, from Michael. I'll post this link below. Moving on to something from Truthout. To take down fossil fuels, we must abandon capitalism. Hey, what an idea. What a concept. This is from Anton Woronchuk. Anton Woronchuk, I think, from January 15th. And it says, starts with Darjamel's latest book bears witness to the destruction of our natural world due to climate change. Darjamel, staff writer at Truthout, has been writing about the global emergency of climate change for nearly a decade. In his new book, The End of Ice, Bearing Witness and Finding Meaning in the Path of Climate Destruction, which is being released today, Jamel shares his firsthand accounts of returning to beloved spaces in the natural world. He observes the drastic ways in which they've been destroyed due to humanity's relentless burning of fossil fuels, and mourns over how many of them are unlikely to recover over the duration of human existence. So this is actually an interview with Darjamel. I'm gonna oh, here we go. It's not long. Starts, Anton, in bearing witness to the destruction of the natural world, you write about the severe impacts of climate change on several different kinds of ecosystems and landscapes. Instead of the end of ice, you could have easily chosen the end of rainforests, the end of coral, or the end of coastal cities as a relevant title for your book. Why did you decide on ice? Darjamel, that's exactly right. We are in an age of loss, and the book could have had any number of titles. I landed on ice for two reasons. First, because that is where I personally feel the loss the most, given how much time I spend in the mountains, where the idea of the book originated, having lived in Alaska and spent so much time on glaciers there while climbing. That is where I saw how dramatically climate change was already unfolding back in the mid-1990s. The second reason I chose ice was because we lose glaciers and ice fields. Literally hundreds of millions and even billions of people will be directly impacted by lack of drinking water, lack of water for irrigation or agriculture, and so much more. This is no small thing. In your accounts about scaling glaciers in Alaska or snorkeling along the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, you reflect on how much has changed since you first visited them. Which was the hardest place to return to? Which was the hardest to leave? All of it was heartbreaking, says Dar. From what I see happening in Denali and other glaciers in Alaska that I have a long-term relationship with, to the loss of the Great Barrier Reef, but certainly the moment when I was out of the Great Barrier Reef, it was the last snorkel of the day and time to head back to land when my heart broke. It was, it really felt like it was the last time I'd see the reef, and I was saying goodbye. I wept. That year, 30% of the reef died from that coral bleaching event I was witnessing. The next year, another bleaching event took out 20% of the reef. So in 2 years, half of the single largest coral reef on the planet was wiped out from climate change-induced bleaching. That's why I wept, knowing that that was happening and was only going to continue. I'm wondering if even more significant changes have occurred in some of the places you've written about in The End of Ice. I could write pages about that, says Dar. I was updating my scientific reports and my citations up until my final deadline for publishing, and even then struggling to keep pace with the changes. Since then, intensely dramatic changes have happened. One example is a study published in Nature that showed that over the last quarter century, the oceans have absorbed 60% more heat annually than estimated in the 2014 IPCC report. The study underscored that the globe's oceans have, in fact, already absorbed 93% of all the heat humans have added to the atmosphere. That the climate system's sensitivity to greenhouse gases is far higher than thought, and that planetary warming is far more advanced than had previously been grasped. To give you an idea of how much heat the oceans have absorbed, if that heat had instead gone into the atmosphere, the global temperature would be 97 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than it is today. For those who think that there are still 12 years left to change things, the question posed by a sea level rise expert in my book seemed painfully apt. How do we remove all the heat that's already been absorbed by the oceans? That is a great question indeed. 2 weeks after the Nature article came out, a study in Scientific Reports warned that the extinction of animal and plant species, thanks to climate change, could lead to a domino effect. Oops. I'm just knocking around things, that in the end might annihilate life on Earth. It suggested that organisms will die out at increasingly rapid rates because they depend on other species that are also on their way out to process the study called co-extinction. Anton, a common thread throughout your book is that the fate of our ecosystems and many ecological sites you visited have been decided. This seems to be in marked contrast with mainstream wisdom, which says that humanity can prevent a climate-induced catastrophe as long as we make major shifts within a decade or so. Why do you think this discrepancy exists? Dar says global capitalism, neoliberal economics, and the power structure depend upon things continuing as they are. The only real chance of mitigation of the impacts of climate change that are now entrenched in the climate system would have been to abandon capitalism and enact something akin to the Green New Deal back when NASA's James Hansen sounded the alarm about climate change to Congress in the 1980s. A radical restructuring of the entire fossil fuel-based economy means that those who have all the power today would be rendered obsolete. The current hierarchy would have to be obliterated. And so, in short, power never concedes power willingly. And that's the end of that article. Indeed, good points raised at the very end, which I just kind of wanted to touch on, and that is that whether we can save ourselves or not, or whether we can make changes in time or not, this is going to become an increasingly more mainstream awareness that climate change is quickly upon us and quickly going to be damaging life as we know it and damaging the system as we know it. And people are going to be asking for, what do we do? Like that's the thing is, I don't know. I totally understand that people are like, well, it's too late. We can't do anything about it. There's nothing to be done. And I get all that. Um, I'm not, I'm not denying the concrete, facts that are behind that thought process. However, um, people are gaining awareness about this when everybody has been doing I don't know if anybody's noticed on Facebook and on Instagram, everybody's doing the 10-year challenge, the aging challenge. How do you look 10 years ago and how do you look now, and had side by side pictures. And actually I saw probably at least 10, if not more, people post pictures of ice and saying things like, this is the only aging challenge that matters. This is what we need to be thinking about. Um, and I was actually astounded at the number of people that I saw post that. The number of people who are aware of this problem is quickly growing, and as the changes in the system become overwhelmingly obvious, people are going to be like, oh my God, this is for real. What do we do? And I want to know if some people want to be the person that's going to be like, ain't nothing to do. Sorry, man. I told you years ago, which is one way to approach it, but I don't know, I don't know if that's what, what are you going to say to people when things start getting out of hand? And this is increasingly going to become a political subject, and people are going to want answers and fixes and roads and paths. What do we do about this? What's the thing that we can do? And, if you just say there's nothing, I don't think that people are going to accept that. And I don't think that that's going to go. That's just, it is what it is. It's a dead end, which is, self-explanatory, right? It's self-reflective of the actual thought pattern. But, it is what it is. We're done. And that's all. Don't ask any more questions. But I think that we should do everything that we should possibly do. And so if you are of the mind frame that we're to do, what's right in the face of incredible odds or, non-existent odds, if that's, if your mindset is do the right thing anyways, then don't say that. That's not the message. Don't say like, well, I don't know, man, there's nothing to do. Like, we have to start talking, communicating the answers or the possible solutions. And one of the possible solutions was in the title of this article, which is the end of capitalism. Actually, we have to end capital. I don't know what happened there. We have to end capitalism before we end the planet. And that's the truth. So you want to tell people what we can actually do? We can stop producing things. We can stop, this whole entire engine that we have. And then we have to tell them, okay, once you stop that, you have another problem: global dimming. You have heat in the oceans. You have a whole lot of problems, cascading, multiplying upon each other, that are going to make life very, very difficult for people. So if there's going to be a techno fix, if there's going to be, in my imagination, the fix is a hybrid of, de-escalating growth, degrowth, walking back down the mountain of carbon emissions and, planetary destruction and production and all the things that we were doing, and going back to a very simple agricultural local lifestyle. And we're going to have to carry on with some kind of technology in order to fix these problems that we have. And we're also going to have figure out how we're going to grow food. As Jem Bendell said, the next few years are going to carry a question of whether we can feed ourselves because of climate change, because of shocks to the food system. So, firstly, how are we going to do that? We're going to build a bunch of greenhouses. Are we going to build indoor farms? Are we going to build underground farms? What are we going to do? And that involves technology. That involves creating things to sustain ourselves for a couple more years while we figure out, what we're going to do about these other problems. And all of this is going to happen anyway. So like, why not have logical, the least damaging paths and technologies already thought out before people start grasping at just radical things like, let's let off a nuclear bomb, or let's create another volcano and see what happens. Create a man-made volcano and just see what goes down. So humanity is going to look for answers, and so it's incumbent upon these thinkers, these great thinkers, these great scientists that have a grasp of the reality of our situation, to go like, well, so if we were to do this, this is the road that we need to take, in a realistic sense, not in an IPC sense, not in a UN kind of like wishy-washy 2100 kind of sense, in a we could see a 10°C rise in temperatures in the next 20 years kind of sense. And it's obvious that there's not much of a chance for a lot of people in that scenario. But who knows? Again, we don't know how the system is going to react. We could get a reprieve. We could get some breaks in the system. We don't know. The point I'm trying to make is, go forward, do everything you can, and then if it's lights out, it's lights out. But like, at least, try your best before the end. And that is the end of my very convoluted rant. Real quick, before I end this video, I wanted to touch on this. Of course, more terrible news. And we also need to end flying and driving and shipping and all that stuff. This is from Vox. Air travel is surging. That's a huge problem for the climate. U.S. airlines have an abysmal carbon footprint. Greenhouse gas emissions in the United States appear to be on the rise again after years of decline. The Rhodium Group recently released preliminary estimates showing carbon dioxide emissions overall surged 3.4% in 2018. That's actually more than another report that I saw, with the transportation sector leading the way as the largest source of emissions for the third year in a row. Interestingly, the bump in transportation emissions didn't come from cars. Car travel increased compared to 2017, but gasoline consumption decreased. That's in part because overall fuel economy in passenger cars is improving as engines become more efficient and electric cars become more popular. Instead, emissions from trucking and air travel helped contribute to the overall increase. Trucking and air travel demand for both diesel and jet fuel increased about 3% in 2018. On the one hand, this shows just how hard it is to bring down greenhouse gas emissions when the U.S. economy is growing. Growth was 3% in 2018. With that came more manufacturing, more power use, more travel, and yes, more greenhouse gases. It's also a clear sign of just how difficult it is to decarbonize the airline industry, for which surprisingly few low-carbon technologies or fuels have been developed so far. That said, there are steps airlines can take to modestly reduce their impact on the environment, like grounding all planes. Nope, that's not what they're going to say. And on this front, a recent report from the German nonprofit Atmosphere shows that U.S.-based airlines have fared poorly compared to air carriers in other countries, failing to take climate change as seriously as some of their competitors abroad. We're failing in the United States. Demand for air travel is surging just when our window to limit catastrophic global warming is closing. In 2018, the total number of air passengers increased in the U.S., with some periods of the year experiencing all-time high air travel volumes. Around the world, airlines carried 4.3 billion passengers in 2018, an increase of 38 million compared to the year before. Aviation accounts for about 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and that share is poised to grow. The International Civil Aviation Organization anticipates that by 2020, global international aviation emissions are projected will be 70% greater than in 2005. 70% by the middle of the century. They are slated to increase by upward of 700%. We're not going to make it to 2050 we're not going to make it to 2050. Sorry, with business as usual. It's just not going to happen. And it's preposterous. These projections are ridiculous. Every round trip transatlantic flight emits enough carbon dioxide to melt 30 square feet of Arctic sea ice. Oh my God. But the planet needs every round trip transatlantic flight emits enough carbon dioxide to melt 30 square feet of Arctic sea ice. Oh. The planet needs to cut its emissions from today by more than half to get on a path to limiting global warming this century to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, there's no path to that right now. We're at 1.5. The path that we need to be on is limiting warming somehow to less than 4 degrees Celsius. The world may only have until 2030 to reach that milestone. This is a good article. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't have time, but this is good stuff. I'm going to link this below and leave it at that. And again, communication, it's incumbent upon the people that know better to communicate the reality about climate change. When we're talking about renewable energies and electric cars, like, okay, fine. But what we really need to be talking about is hardcore, deep adaptations. If we're going to deeply adapt to climate change, we need to talk about, shutting down the airline industry, shutting it down. Again, if there were some type of yellow vest movement globally to fight climate change, there was Extinction Rebellions globally, and there most likely will be those kinds of demonstrations. If not this year, then in the next few. Maybe we don't have to have those kinds of demonstrations if we can illustrate to people the fact that this is the problem. This is the problem. Your lifestyle is the problem. And then, obviously it needs to be mandated from the top down, because you can't start, you can't just expect people to do things on their own, especially when everybody else is doing them. So, we need to support people who are loud and radical in any kind of government position, loud and radical in any kind of media position. Anybody who has the largest platforms, Bernie Sanders, AOC, anybody who can speak about this in the mainstream media, anybody who can broadcast and project the real information to people, to millions of people at a time, so that we can get the idea across. Like, look, it's not a matter of like little tiny adjustments. It's a matter of like stopping all car travel. Like, you're not allowed to, it's whatever, bike, walk, or bust, or shared large transportation vehicles or bust. That's all you get. You don't get personal vehicles. You don't get airline trips. You don't get, that's it. You're grounded. Stay home. Stay in your area, stay in your local community. You're growing food now. This is what needs to be done. This is what needs to be communicated. Meanwhile, all the best scientists are going to be trying to figure out how to keep the roof from caving in of the biosphere. And there's lots to talk about that as well. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Or, check it out. If you support this channel, I'll send you a sticker. I'll send you a sticker anyways, even if you don't support the channel. Monetarily, plenty of people do, and I thank you for your contributions. It really, really helps. Until next time, peace.